That escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
It's a good thing I'm wearing this $500 helmet after I got drilled there, or I might have been killed. But in all seriousness, is it just me, or are hockey players getting way more emotional these days and just becoming snowflakes? Because after that play, I'm starting to question the mental health of a lot of players out there. If you have a really terrible home life and you just can't take somebody just taking a shot off the boards barely and it wrecks your emotions, maybe you should play a different sport. But hey, that's just me. In the NHL recently, a lot of controversy has been going on when people are taking empty net slap shots or putting the puck in the net after the whistle or whatever, and people are just losing their mind, and it's a huge controversy. But it brings me to my next point, is that beer league isn't really much different, and actually emotionally, most people lose it even more. So your protective is important, because I was not expecting to get drilled like that, especially blindside and then landing on my head and getting hit in the visor. And it did actually save me despite my gripes with this helmet. But it is important to have the best gear you have, because you just don't know who you're playing against out there, like that idiot. $499 for the Hyp2rlite 2 helmet. Now, this is getting ridiculous because the tax came out last year and was $500, but it had 3D printed mesh, and they were trying to push the limits on what they were doing with the helmet. Did it justify $500? Probably not. It was quite comfortable, but it had its own flaws, and I did a review on that, so I'm not going to get into it. But in terms of the Hyp2rlite 2, the biggest issue with this helmet is I don't see that it has $500 worth of features.
Money, money.
So when I say $500 worth of features, it's pretty hard to justify that with any hockey equipment, to be honest. It all comes down to personal preference and what do you feel is actually improving your game, and you feel the features that it does give you are worth it for you personally. It's pretty hard to justify a piece of plastic and a little bit of foam inside is $500. So what is like a $500 feature to me? It is trying to push the limits of the actual comfort, protection, lightness, etc. of a helmet. Now the Tax X tried to do that with 3D printed mesh, and 3D printing is kind of expensive. You need, fancy machines and all that, so I understand. But when it comes to the Hyp2rlite helmet, the new one is when you look inside here, what this actually has, which justifies the entire helmet, comfort, protection, fit, etc. There's nothing here. It's not moldable. It's not 3D printed. It's nothing fancy. And to be honest, I'm going to get into the things that I'm most disappointed in first in terms of the $500. And we're going to talk about the inside, fit, comfort, protection. First, Bauer's best helmet, in my opinion, was the React 100. I had that helmet for quite some time, and the suspend tech that was in that was so comfortable. It set so perfect on your head, and when you adjusted it, and it had that kind of movement to it, like around your head because of the suspend tech, you could kind of go like this, and you could feel that suspend tech moving. That was kind of a new innovation from Bauer, and I really liked it, and I wore the React 100 for a long time. I then picked up the React 150, I believe. I don't know the lineage great in terms of Bauer's React helmets. And it was terrible. Like the fit on the temples gave me a headache. It was like huge and bulbous. It was bizarre. So I think this is a regression. I really think that the React 100 was a better helmet. And Bauer has kind of taken a step back in terms of fit and comfort here. And the reason is because when you look inside here, and what we're dealing with is all this stuff is mostly hard. And there's some tiny little pads in here like this that are just frankly pathetic. And this is what's kind of suspending your head away from the hard foams and stuff of the helmet, which is why I think I felt it so bad when I hit the boards with this helmet. I think this is the stuff that really gets me with Bauer's Hyp2rlite line in general. Skates, helmet, whatever it might be. So we've got a Hyp2rlite helmet at 559 grams. Now let's go check out my other helmet. Now here's the CF100. Now it doesn't have the little plastic things right here because I switched over my stuff, but I mean, give me a break. Those are probably like 3 grams, if that. So the Hyp2rlite 2 helmet, which is supposed to be basically light, it's called Hyp2rlite, is actually not even the lightest helmet compared to my CF100. This is kind of my biggest gripe with Bauer's stuff lately is, the Hyp2rlite skates, for example, are heavier than the OG Hyp2rlite or the 2X Pro, etc. So if they continue to name these things Hyp2rlite, like get rid of some weight somehow. Now, I understand weight isn't everything in terms of any equipment that we do for hockey, but when it comes to a line that perhaps is called Hyp2rlite and that's how they market it, is, basically featherlight technology, you should at least make sure that your product is the lightest then on the market. Stick, helmet, skates, protective, whatever it might be, at least so the namesake holds its own. That's kind of my biggest gripe, because I was kind of hoping this would be lighter, and it's actually not than the CF100. And then of course we'll get into all the other aspects in terms of protection, comfort, fit, etc. But if I was going to design this helmet and call it Hyp2rlite, it would be probably less than every other helmet on the market. As mentioned, because the helmet is mostly a hard interior, especially the hexagon looking things in the corners, and only the padding that's soft on the side is remotely soft with these really weak pads, it's probably the least comfortable helmet I've worn in actually quite some time. And it actually feels like I'm wearing a box, if I'm honest. So the comfort of the Hyp2rlite 2 helmet is just not there. So when you're talking $500 helmets, such as the Tax X, which is actually quite comfortable, although it does pull your hair a little bit, unless you're a beer league guy that, like me, that barely has any hair, the Tax is going to be more comfortable. The Hyp2rlite here, though, with all this in here, it's not very comfortable. So just keep that in mind. So when I first popped on my Hyp2rlite 2, like so, I realized that the fit did not feel great in this direction. When I'm actually, like, the best way to describe it is that it feels like it's a complete box that's sitting on your head, very, very square. And I get kind of a lot of squeeze here. The problem with that is that if you adjust it, then you get this all game. And then you're skating around with your eyes covered by the top of your helmet. So I'm constantly having to adjust the helmet and push it down because it doesn't fit well this way. Now, in terms of this way, yes, we can change all that and we can change the front and back, but it just doesn't seem to have the adjustments with squishy foams that keep everything in line to where it should be. So my CF100 was perfect. It never moved around because the foam was nice and cushiony, and you could clamp that together on your head and you wouldn't get any headaches or anything, and it would stay in place. The fit of the Hyp2rlite 2, as soon as I start skating, because this feels like I'm wearing a straight up box, down to my eyes. What do you do? Okay. Fit is one thing, how it looks is another, but protection is obviously the biggest thing with a hockey helmet. Now, I always do my videos based on beer league and rec hockey, so that's extremely important for my viewers to understand, because that's what I play. I'm a professional. I can't take this helmet and be like, it did really well in the NHL when I got drilled. But at the end of the day, it did save my butt a number of times. Now, I've hit my head on the ice 3 times with this helmet. But here's my gripe with it, despite the Virginia Tech rating of 18 out of 66. As you can see right here on the overalls for the helmets, it's got a 4 out of 5 stars. But my gripe with the protection is that when I hit the ice, my head still freaking hurt. And you know why? It's because the foams in here are still too hard. There is no impact resistance. So this actual helmet might have the protection to prevent a concussion, which is great, but why didn't they build better foams to stop it from feeling like you're getting hit in the head with concrete inside your helmet? That is my gripe with protection. So yes, it does have a decent ranking, which there's been criticisms and stuff I'm not going to get into in the Virginia Tech studies, but in terms of overall feel, if you're smacking into the boards or your head, you're going to feel it. Maybe it prevents concussions based on those ratings, but it damn well hurts. And that's something to be understanding when purchasing this, because a lot of people, if you're playing like really high level contact hockey, hitting the boards constantly, getting knocked around, you're going to feel it because it's hard on your head. Simple as that. It seems like we're in a time where hockey equipment seems to be skyrocketing a bit in terms of inflation and price, and I've seen a couple of videos out there on it. But at the end of the day, this helmet is a $500 Canadian helmet, and it frankly doesn't need to be. And the market for this stuff really is non-existent. I don't ever hear anybody going and picking up the Hyp2rlite 2 helmet. I've never seen anybody with it, because if you look at the Virginia Tech studies, again, disclaimer, don't know much about it other than some of the criticisms and stuff that people have said, but the Virginia Tech study has a whole bunch of helmets at like $80 that are ranked 20 spaces higher than this, the CF100, the Tax, the Hyp2rlite, the Alpha One, all the top end helmets. So the top end helmets are supposed to be designed for probably what? Sleekness, comfort, weight, etc. And I frankly think they're kind of missing the boat on that anyway. I don't think helmets need to be this expensive, and I don't think Bauer is doing a very good job with their recent releases. The Hyp2rlite 2 is no. The Hyp2rlite 1 was far worse. And the Reacts lately haven't been great since the React 100, and I've seen a lot of people with gripes on that as well. So what is Bauer doing that justifies this cost? I personally think it's a whole lot of gall, in my personal opinion. So you can get far better helmets with about half the price of this. So is it worth purchasing as I start to summarize this review? Hell no. So you're like, wow, Boomer, the $500 Hyp2rlite 2 helmet, when Bauer has been crapping the bed on most of their product releases that have the name Hyp2rlite on it, didn't turn out all right good. Yeah, I know. But this is how I personally buy helmets. And it's extremely important to test, because what I find is helmets and fit are crazy in terms of the differences between them. So when I put on this helmet, grabbed it from the guy, and I went like this, I already knew it wasn't going to be great, just because it felt weird, like I said, the box and the fit, and of course it turned out not to be. Now, when I bought the React 100 helmet, which was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, as soon as I did this, it was like putting a cloud on my head. And the difference between some of them was just night and day. And that was the same with the React 150, is when I went from the 100 to the 150, it was instantly, it felt like this, where I was just like, wow, this is really uncomfortable. So my advice for buying a helmet is, first, is ignore these $500 behemoths. It's just not worth it. And second is grab 5 or 6 different helmets in the price range that you're looking for. Make sure they're sized correctly and slip it on, slip it on, slip it on. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be one where you put it on and you're like, instantly, it's fine. Because that is how different some of the fits can be despite the adjustments. So with the Hyp2rlite, go put it on in the store. And I'll tell you right now, you're going to feel like me. You're going to be like, man, am I wearing a box? This is brutal. And then you're going to look at the price tag and be like, $500. That, and you'll be done. So my advice is do that. Now, if you're looking for a decent top-end helmet with good protection and comfort, the React 100 I have seen on different areas in terms of like sideline swap and things like that, although it is getting harder to find. I personally might sell this to some unsuspecting person, unfortunately, that wants to try it, and go pick up a React 100 and get that fit back. Anyway, $500, pass.